Fellows of Islamic Academy of Sciences, dear colleagues, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, when Dr. Zoubi suggested that I should talk about some experience from Delft University of Technology, where I have been working the last 12 years or so, I had mixed feelings. Partly because I know that most of you have experienced or have seen or have heard about the practice at some reputed technological university worldwide. But on the other hand, although I have served at several universities in different countries, when I came to Netherlands, I found many things a bit different. Dutch tends to do things in their own way. So, but before I start with conveying to you some experience from TU Delft, especially over the past decade, where there have been a number of very significant changes and transformation, and I guess not only at TU Delft, but in many universities, especially science and technology universities, let me dwell a few minutes on some general issues. I start with some well-known, widely accepted beliefs that no one can disavow. Industrial and economic development and prosperity of a nation is indeed correlated with the achievements in science and investment in research. That science and research is a major driving force for progress. And you all know about the linear model that research, development, production, and marketing implies, in fact, that a good science policy, good investment in science is almost a guarantee for industrial and economic prospect. And I quote here Abdus Salam. And it's a fact that only few nations in the world which are leading in science are drawing enormous capital gain by selling high-tech goods to all countries around the world. But there are many questions, and me coming originally from Bosnia and Herzegovina before the problems were with the war, that was Yugoslavia, sort of medium-sized country, developing countries. We were facing all these problems, and many countries still face them. Does it really mean that catching up with the top science is the only way to reduce development gap? Or post-war development of Japan, Malaysia, and South Korea are interesting examples. Can developing countries afford to match the investment into research of leading countries? And what is the minimum threshold? How about the manpower? And would the industry of those countries be able to absorb all scientific and innovative achievements and convert them into commercial products competitive on the world market? A crucial issue, we all know it's a choice of priority. Appropriate science and technology policy to utilize the competitive advantages. You might have seen, or some of you might have seen, this recent study by David King, Chief Science Advisor to UK government, about the correlation between the science and economy effectiveness. What we have here is so-called citation intensity, actually number of publications, citation per publication per capita, and now we have national or GDP. And indeed, there is a very close correlation here between these two parameters, but there's also a very interesting scatter here where you see that some countries are of the same or similar GDP are doing much, much better than some other countries, for instance. I have put an insert here, which is actually a small discussion, just to illustrate something that I will talk at the very end, and that's the awareness of public of the importance of science, and I think Netherlands is a good example for that. The same graph, which comes from Nature, was published actually in a daily newspaper called Handelsblad, translated into Dutch. Just a little more, the very recent graph of the R&D expenditure as a percentage of GDP, and I also put here, well, you can see some shooting countries like Sweden over 3.5%, but I put here, talking about the threshold, the recent recommendation of the Inter-Academic Council in response to the appeal of Kofi Annan, what should the developing countries and all countries aim at between at least 1 and 1.5%. Well, the practice in many not so developed countries and smaller countries is to imitate the well-developed industrial countries, industrial nations. Also, engineers tend to advocate always the technologically most advanced solutions, options. Contrary to expectations, economists do not bring economic reality. They actually go along with these ambitions, partly because they score political goals, and partly because there's absence of public accountability. But what I would like to say that is technological progress in the economic sense is not always, or does not coincide always with the technological progress in the technical sense. And we have heard yesterday example of Russia, or now perhaps North Korea, and so on, that some even small countries can make breakthroughs in technology, but of course at the great expense of other sectors of industry and segments of society. Steve Klein, late professor from Stanford, made an interesting study some years back comparing post-war development of Japan and the USA, and claims that there is a category of information which can be called technological knowledge, which he thinks has been more important throughout the entire industrial era for the success in commercial markets than the scientific knowledge. We also can say that science usually doesn't finish the task of innovation, and that manufacturing and operating skills and knowledge led countries like Japan to become a leading economic power despite surprising shortage of Nobel laureates. Well, that doesn't mean that science should be left only to the rich, but the selection of priorities and a balanced commitment on both own basic research and acquisition of knowledge is the primary priority. And seeking, acquiring, and transforming knowledge is a complex technology on its own, the knowledge technology, which should, in my mind, be the top educational priority in developing countries. Well, we all know that basic research is the only research which can generate knowledge, new knowledge and skills, and that universities are the generators and disseminators of new knowledge. Only the scientists who actively contribute to the world knowledge and world science treasure are capable of drawing the top knowledge. But the major weaknesses in the technological development loop is the science and education system. I put here a sketch of a relatively simplified technological pyramid or technological loop, indicating that production complex is in the basis, which generates the goods, national goods, which then feeds into the next tier, consisting of educational complex, science complex, and innovative complex. If well organized, well supported, this complex will generate new knowledge, scientific results, which with interaction with the innovative complex will generate new products or new quality. Of course, major external factor is the market. And if everything functioned properly, then we will have increase in the national income that will feed back into the production segment. But the problem is that this technological loop cannot function if at any level this critical threshold is not achieved. Now, what is this to do with TU Delft? Well, although it has been one of the, I would say, one of the top university, technology universities in Europe, and the Netherlands has a long tradition in science, technology, industry, and education, and so on, most of these problems are still of great concern, even at such universities. The new slogans are knowledge-based economy, and in this, there's search for new identity, new concept, role, and niche in the society, and how to meet these new challenges of the 21st century. And this, I think, concern has not been specific to Delft University, but we talked to colleagues in Trondheim, in Norwegian Institute of Technology, in Danish Institute of Technology, in Lingvi, in ETH, in Zurich, and so on, and you hear more or less the same kind of phrases, same kind of stories and worries and so on. The problem is that, like everywhere, there has been a continuous decline of student enrollment, which is actually loss of interest in science. And one of the goals has been how to reestablish respect and social status of the profession and to reverse the negative trends. Now, briefly about Delft University of Technology. I wouldn't go into history. It was founded 150 years ago, different names and so on. The current situation, about 13 to 14,000 students, yearly enrollment about 2,400, currently about 700 PhDs, staff 800 academics, of which 200 are full professors, yearly output 1,500 graduate engineers. Till now we don't have undergraduates, but now we are in Bologna process, so we'll have soon. About 180 PhDs per year, 40 so-called design diplomas, 5,000 to 6,000 scientific publications. This is a more recent figure. And 2,300 professional publications, 40 to 60 patents, annual budget 400 million euros, of which about 3/4 come from the state, based on the enrollment and other performances on the output. But the rest is from so-called third stream, from industry, from European community, and so on. Most recent the Times Higher Education Supplement ranked Delft to 17th position among the technical university. We, or people, think that we should be higher, but the aim is to belong to the top 5 in the world. The major transformation came actually in 1999, or started in 1999, they are still underway. And the slogan was to adjust to the global trends and to prepare to the social and academic demands of the 21st century in the new internationally oriented world of education and research, I quote. So it has always been, but emphasis is now more research-driven universities. What have been the major changes? First, 13 faculties which operated, some even for longer than 70 years, have been clustered and then divided into new. There's a new education strategy. I don't think there's much new in the phrasing, because thinking about knowing, learn to learn now is the new slogan. But in order to attract students, a lot of classical nomenclature has been abandoned. For instance, there's no mechanical engineering department or no electrical engineering department. It's now some fancy names. Classical departments in the Faculty of Applied Physics, where I have been working last 10 years, like optics, particle optics, acoustics, theoretical physics, and so on, condensed matters, have been abandoned, and the former chairs or section have been clustered into a new department, a new name, like departments of multiscale physics, that's my Mediamatica, haptics. We also adopted in 2002 Bologna, and interesting thing, this is in red, that all MSc courses and even some bachelor's courses or studies are all in English, for instance, aerospace. And has been a lot of activities and endeavors in popularization of the university in media campaigns, also in high schools, and some interesting macro and mega projects at the university level. And some of these, at least some of these measures have resulted in interesting effect. Student enrollment increased in 2003 by 14% as compared to the previous years. I mentioned some students' mega project. Enrollment in mechanical engineering boosted double after this success of the TU Delft student team on this solar-driven car. It was the second winning of the Solar Challenge 3,000 kilometer race across Australia. And they said the average speed was 100 kilometers, and the students said they could do even faster, but there is a speed limit. And another interesting idea is to build a giant windmill between two buildings of the aerospace engineering, and the students are now very active in getting funding. I don't know if it's going to go because of the noise, but they claim it's a very silent wind turbine. Public media. There's an office at TU Delft which monitors and provides clips or collects clips from all media and distributes to all employees. And you can see, I forgot which year was that, there's about 1,400, almost 1,500 times Delft University appeared in media, and the winner was actually civil engineering, because there are a lot of interesting civil engineering projects going on. Now, the major restructuring came actually in the research, and what I'm showing here is just a standard organization. But the emphasis that I want to put is these interfaculty, multidisciplinary, and sort of university activities concentrated in so-called Delft research centers. Then there are research schools and there are research institutes. But I think this is the main novelty, which is actually aimed at concentrating people from different departments, different faculties on one project. And these are 13 key long-term research topics. And you can see we start from computational science, technology. It's alphabetic. And earth, energy, water, sustainability is an important factor, and so on. And some slogans. Now, I pick up only 4 of the interesting projects. On your left, you have the high-tech things like nanotechnology or self-healing, self-repairing materials. But there are also projects which deal with very profane topics like spectacles for €1 or €1, or using CO2 at supercritical condition for washing, which should save enormous amount of water and have an enormous positive environmental impact. Another issue which has been very important is the quality assessment. And we have heard this morning a little about it, but I want to say something about research quality assessment in Netherlands. It started many years ago, but officially it was inaugurated in 1993, and it's coordinated by the Association of Universities in Netherlands and the Royal Dutch Academy of Arts and Sciences. And some guiding principle, 1994, protocol of quality assessment. And in the period from 1993 to 1996, almost all universities from theology to engineering sciences have been evaluated by peer committees. And then there have been some reviews and amendments, and we have now a new one, which is called Standard Evaluation Protocol for Public Research, and one of the novelties is public accountability. And the aim is more or less, as you can see, here improvement of everything, especially emphasis on management and leadership and accountability, and combine retrospective and prospective analysis. Now, the unit which is being evaluated is a chair, or Lehrstuhl in German, or section, which consists actually of a full professor, chair professor, perhaps 1 or 2 additional professors, 3 to 5 lecturers or docents or assistant or associate professors, some technicians, secretary, and so on. And the basic for evaluation is the program description, research portfolio, and so on. And very much emphasis has been given on self-evaluation with the full implementation of SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, which has been actually the major difficulties to give a really objective. And then another interesting thing is the bibliometric analysis, which has been actually done for every department by the professional institute in Leiden called Center for Science and Technology Studies of the Leiden Universities. An example of TNW means the technical natural sciences. So it's the Faculty of Natural Sciences, for instance, some of the interesting parameters that we had to deal with when doing the self-evaluation. Quality assessment, quality, productivity, relevance, and important factor is viability or vitality and feasibility, which actually has to make sure that the group or section or research group has some future and is choosing properly the direction of future research, but also is capable of closing the research and activities which do not have good prospects. And these are the rating, 5 points. I should perhaps indicate that excellent is actually reserved for institute considered as an international leader. A very good international player, but national leader. Good, internationally visible, and a national player. Satisfactory is still good, actually. Institute is nationally visible. Just an example, in 1996, I'm showing an example of the physics, and that includes general universities and technical universities. So 101 sections have been evaluated. Typical size, this is the typical composition. And peer committee found that more over 10%, but only 10% are excellent. Over 50% above the satisfactory level. But interesting example is that despite at that time, Delft had quite a lot of money, executive board of the university decided to close one section which was last ranked out of the 16, although it had a visibility, international visibility, and was in the minds of many doing pretty well. That was a warning and demonstration of the importance of the peer evaluation to enhance the dynamics and university structuring. The board said, it's not because of the money, we're going to open 2 new sections instead of 1. But we just have to we have to change something and introduce changing every now and then. Then we had the 2002 assessment of research quality, relatively recent, which in fact resulted in generally congruent results as the previous one, although peer review was completely different. One interesting difference is that TU Delft decided not to go along with other universities, but to side with Leiden, which is one of the leading in theoretical physics, and to have a common assessment of these 2 universities. Something about bibliometric indicators. This institute is doing it really professionally. It's not just citation and citation per publication. There are some of the, you see, the average number of, the basic parameters are the average number of citations per publication with exclusion of the self-citation. And then these are normalized with either the average citation in journals in which group has published or in the field defined by means of ISI journal categories. And these are meant to be actually to relativize the citation impact because there's different culture in different community. And these are 2 count indicators, citation per publication divided by either field or journal averaged. I have some graphs here which show where the Dutch physics is now, and each of these points is 1 section, and you can see the empty points is average, but these are much above and these are much below the average. This is chemistry, this is something else. New trends joining the forces. Well, there's something called Ideal League, Imperial, Delft, ETH, Aachen. More recently, Dutch Institute of Technology, amalgamation of all 3 technical universities, and even more recent, European Institute of Technology that you might have heard of it. This is something in Singapore. And the last couple of slides, it's only 1 minute, how important science is in the media in Netherlands and how much aware is the public. You can see that every ranking that appears anywhere is already published very soon in daily newspapers, and you can see the ranking of the citation, where the universities are. This is a science patterns and so on. And I found this amazing. I think that's something that is specific for Netherlands. National Science Quiz at the Christmas, 25th of December, every year, 10 o'clock in the evening, when the family are watching, and you get the questions much in advance in all newspapers. You have teams competing, and the last one, Dutch number 1s. In many countries, you have top politician, top sportsman, top writer, but there is also more cited scientists. And I think I close with this, indicating this a bit out of context of my lecture, just to indicate a little of a very fertile culture in Netherlands and awareness of science. Thank you.
Goodbye.